Okay, so this is the story of Dumbo. Let's get into it. The circus was buzzing with excitement as a fleet of storks delivered babies for all of the animals. There was a Joey for Mrs. Kangaroo, twin cubs for Mrs. Bear, and a baby hippo for Mrs. Hippopotamus. Only Mrs. Jumbo, the elephant, was sad. The stork didn't have a delivery for her. The next morning, the circus train chugged down the tracks. It was springtime, and the animals were heading north after a winter break to perform for children everywhere. High in the sky above them, a stork circled with a heavy bundle. "Mrs. Jumbo," he called, "I have a delivery for you." The mother elephant was thrilled as the stork dropped off her baby. She peeked inside the blanket and fell in love. She decided to name her baby Jumbo Jr. The other elephants gathered around to see the youngster. Mrs. Jumbo smiled proudly and tickled her baby under his chin with her long trunk. Achoo! As Jumbo Jr. sneezed, his ears flapped open. They were absolutely enormous. The other elephants gasped. They pointed at Jumbo's huge ears and whispered. Then they began to laugh. Mrs. Jumbo became angry at the other elephants. With her long trunk, she cradled baby Jumbo. "Jumbo," said an elephant. "You mean Dumbo." Bullying is never okay. It's very sad and leads to very bad things. The elephants laughed at the new name, but Mrs. Jumbo didn't care at all. She snuggled in the hay with her baby. She loved Dumbo, ears and all. The next day was the circus show. Dumbo smiled happily at the crowds and waved his big ears. Some noisy children began to point at Dumbo and laugh. One boy reached over and tugged on his ears. Mrs. Jumbo picked the boy up with her trunk and spanked him. The ringmaster thought Mrs. Dumbo had gone crazy, so he locked her up. Dumbo was sad. The other elephants turned their backs on him. He was all alone in the world except for a little mouse named Timothy. Timothy Mouse liked Dumbo and his big ears. Timothy told his friend to ignore the elephants. He thought Dumbo could be a star someday, so he helped him practice for a special circus act. Dumbo had to jump off the top of an elephant pyramid. He practiced for hours, but he kept tripping on his big ears. Timothy tied them in a knot on the top of Dumbo's head. "That ought to do the trick," he said. Oh! This story is making me sad. Look at Dumbo! Now I realize why I never got through the movie, because it just made me sad. Trumpets blared and the curtain opened. It was Dumbo's big moment. He raced down the red carpet as Timothy cheered him on, but Dumbo's big ears came untied and he tripped. He tumbled right into the pyramid. Dude, I'm gonna cry. The giant animals came crashing down, bringing the whole circus tent with them. It was a disaster. The ringmaster was so angry with Dumbo that he decided to make him perform with the clowns. Dude. And Dumbo has a hard life. The other circus elephants were humiliated. From now on, Dumbo is no longer an elephant, they said. Dude! They kicked him out of the species. What if somebody came up to you and was like, "You're no longer human"? What are you gonna... I'm sorry. I'll just read the story, I promise. Dumbo hated performing with the clowns. They threw water on him and made him jump from a tower into a tiny bucket. Dumbo was lonely and miserable. Sorry, I'm gonna read the story. Timothy Mouse felt sorry for Dumbo, so he arranged for Dumbo to see his mother. That made Dumbo happy again. He wanted to make her proud. Okay, sorry, I'm having a moment. Okay. Dumbo went to sleep that night and had a wonderful dream. He dreamed he could fly, and it seemed so real. Dumbo and Timothy woke in the morning to the sounds of birds chattering nearby. The birds were sitting on branches high in a tree, and so were Dumbo and Timothy Mouse. How in the world did they get up there? Timothy and Dumbo were so surprised to be up in the tree they fell right out. The birds laughed as the friends splashed into the pond below. Why is everybody laughing at Dumbo? Dumbo deserves better. Justice for Dumbo. Timothy wondered how they had gotten into the tree. The bird suggested that maybe Dumbo flew into the tree. Timothy felt that was possible. "Dumbo, just look at your ears," he said. "They're like wings." Timothy Mouse and the birds huddled together and tried to think of a way to make Dumbo fly again. Finally, the birds handed Timothy a black feather. "Tell Dumbo to magic feather," they said. Dumbo perched on the edge of a high cliff. Timothy told Dumbo to hold the magic feather in his trunk and flap his ears. Dumbo flapped and flapped, stirring up a cloud of dirt. When Dumbo opened his eyes, he was flying with the birds high above the treetops. Timothy Mouse was riding in Dumbo's hat and cheering for his big friend. Jesus. When Dumbo and Timothy returned to the circus that night, they kept Dumbo's new talent a secret. He prepared for his routine with the clowns just as he always did. Only this time the clowns had raised Dumbo's tower. It was so high Dumbo could barely see the ground. Poor Dumbo. Look at it. They made him go all the way up there. Trumpets blared and the spotlight settled on Dumbo. He bravely stood at the edge of the tall tower, grasping his magic feather tightly in his trunk. It was his big moment. Timothy Mouse gave Dumbo a smile and climbed into his hat. The friends were ready. Dumbo jumped and down, down, down they dropped. Suddenly the magic feather slipped from Dumbo's grasp. What were they going to do? Timothy shouted into Dumbo's ear. He told them the feather wasn't really magic. "You can fly all by yourself, Dumbo," Timothy yelled. "You can do it." At the last second, Dumbo flapped his enormous ears. He swooped over the crowd and flew around the circus tent. He glided gracefully through the air. He could do it. Dumbo could fly. The feather wasn't really magic after all. Everyone in the audience jumped to their feet and cheered for Dumbo. They were amazed. They went home and told their friends. They came to the circus too. The ringmaster was so happy he brought Dumbo's mother back to live with Dumbo. Mrs. Jumbo couldn't believe her eyes. Her baby elephant could fly just like a bird. Dude, I didn't realize that Mrs. Jumbo was locked up this whole time. That's really unfortunate. Newspapers across the country ran stories about the flying elephant and his amazing, enormous ears. Word spread around the world. In every language, people talked about Dumbo's flying circus. Mrs. Jumbo was proud of her son. She remembered the day he was delivered. She had always known her baby elephant was special. Now the rest of the world did too. Oh my God. The ringmaster added a special rail car to the circus train for Dumbo and his mother. He wanted them to be comfortable since the circus had many new towns and cities to visit. From then on, Dumbo and his mother were always together. Whenever the circus train chugged along down the tracks, they could be seen laughing and playing in the last car. Mrs. Jumbo would wrap Dumbo in a big hug with her long trunk, and Dumbo would smile happily as his enormous ears flapped in the breeze. Look at how cute they are! Dumbo's making me feel a certain kind of way.